What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another fun video. Today I thought that I would kind of, tell you guys about my top 10 favorite underrated movies. I'll give you the reason why I think that they're underrated. And I can talk to you guys a little bit about why these movies, are underrated by critics and audiences, and what my personal views on all of these movies are. And I thought this could be a fun thing to do because, I think a lot of people watching this video have probably seen some of these movies and enjoyed them, but you didn't probably know that they weren't met with, open arms at the box office or by critics. And I think this could be interesting. So let's get into this. Alright, so coming in at number 10, it's not surprising that this one wasn't met with, a big wow, but is Kung Pao, Legend of the Fist. And it annoys me that this movie wasn't met with, kind of just like a it is what it is kind of vibe. I mean, this is a spoof movie of all of those old 1960s and 70s kung fu movies, with over-the-top freaking flips and kicks and, martial arts shit. It's not supposed to be an amazing movie. It's supposed to not be taken seriously at all, It's basically just a spoof of everything that was that time, and I thought it was pretty damn funny. I mean, you've got a cow shooting, freaking milk out of its udders at a guy, and a dog it is a weirdly wonderful movie. And the thing that made this movie, underappreciated, I could say, is the fact that it's a spoof movie. People went and watched it and then went, yeah, well, it's too over the top. It's a spoof movie. It's supposed to be over the top. It's not supposed to wow you with its amazing cinematography or graphics. It's a bunch of bullshit that you're just supposed to watch for what it is. And if you are like me and you can sit through a movie that is the biggest load of crap you will ever see and just sit there and take it for what it is, you would appreciate this movie. So if you're a fan of spoof movies and you haven't seen Kung Pao, go watch it. If you have seen it, let me know in the comments what you thought about this movie. Alright, so number 9 is a movie called Kingdom of Heaven with Orlando Bloom. And this movie is, it's basically one of those old sword fighting movies, kind of in the same vibe as Troy and King Arthur and those kinds of movies. And what this movie was basically, they took a pretty good story and a pretty good era to put the story in, and Orlando Bloom was the lead actor in this movie. And for me, as a fan of these older type vibe movies and sword fighting movies and stuff like that, I went into this, not with high expectations at all, just to watch it for what it is. And at the end of the movie, I was pretty surprised at how good this was. I mean, Orlando Bloom gave a very good performance. I thought he was, very, very decent as a lead character in a movie like this one. Seeing Liam Neeson in this was an absolute treat. I mean, I love Liam Neeson, and I think, he's a very good actor. And the story for me was really good. I mean, I couldn't find any faults in the movie because, for what it was, I think it was written pretty well and that the acting was pretty good. This movie was met with a ton of criticism because people said they thought Orlando Bloom wasn't the right choice and they felt that the movie was bland and boring. I really don't see it. I mean, if you're a fan of these kinds of movies, you will absolutely enjoy it just for the plain sake that it's not a bad movie. Even if you're not a fan of this movie, you might like it just to see, Orlando Bloom kind of hit a stride in being a lead character and the main role in a movie. So I thought it was good. Critics can be a little bit harsh sometimes, and I think this was one of those, situations where they were too harsh on an actor and maybe, the whole film. I think that's what happened here. But all in all, I'd say this is a pretty good movie. So speaking of Liam Neeson, coming in at number 8 is his movie The Grey. Now, The Grey was one of those movies, I quickly read what it was about before watching it, but, I just kind of watched this movie. And honestly, yes, some of the CGI wasn't done very well. I could say that with 100%, yes, I agree with that. But that's not what this movie is about. It's not about the CGI. It's about the story. And if you focus only on the story, which is the most important part of this movie, I don't think this movie was that bad. I mean, it's about this guy who's basically he's kind of over everything. He's lived the life. He's done a lot of things, and now he's just like a god at this place where there's like a bunch of wolves and shit. And the narrative of the story going into it is that he's protecting people, and that's not really him. That's not really his whole vibe. He's kind of given up already. And how they incorporate the wolves and you can like see their side of it as well. I think that was a pretty genius move by the writers and the director. And as the movie progressed, I actually got more into the movie. And after seeing the post-credits scene, if you didn't know this post-credits scene, skip all the credits, there's something there. It was really just, I thought it was a good movie for the whole story and what it is. I really understand why people said they didn't like the CGI. I get it. It wasn't the best, but it wasn't a bad movie. The story was actually pretty good. So coming in at number 7 is a movie that just thinking about it makes me laugh. It's called Pop Star, Never Stop, Never Stopping. It's basically the Lonely Islands movie. A lot of people didn't like this because, this movie made fun of a lot of, famous pop stars. It made fun of some of the, music industry cliches. It doesn't shy away from, just basically taking a subject and absolutely shitting on it. It's one of those movies. And for me personally, I went into this movie, kind of expecting, Andy Samberg vibes and Akiva Schaffer vibes. And that's what I got. I mean, if you've seen Hot Rod, if you've seen all of these other types of movies, this is basically just a music era Hot Rod. It's a music era, it's all of those other kind of Lonely Island movies just with music. And I thought this was funny. I appreciated the fact that they went after some pop stars, and kind of made fun about, some of the stuff that happened to them and stuff. And for me, it was funny. I enjoyed it. I mean, yes, there are definitely better comedy movies out there, but I don't think it deserves all the crap that it got from critics. It's comedy. It's not supposed to be taken seriously. It's funny. Just find the humor sometimes in life. I mean, sometimes in very shitty moments you could find humor, and I think this movie does that pretty well. So I enjoyed it, and I think it deserves to be on this list as an underrated movie. Alright, coming in at number 6 is a fairly older movie, and it's a Mel Brooks movie, Robin Hood Men in Tights. Now, again, this is kind of like the Kung Pao thing, alright? It's a spoof movie. It makes fun of a lot of different situations. It's got that, it's so dumb, it's funny vibes in a lot of scenes, and that's what makes this movie good. You're not supposed to sit there and think, oh wow, all of these actors are so amazing in this role. It's not about that. It's about, the humor. It's about the spoof. It's about the whole, it's not really supposed to be taken seriously at all kind of vibe. And this movie delivered for me. On that, it delivered. It was funny, it was witty, There was some scenes that I actually had to pause the movie so that I could finish laughing and finish the movie. So why this movie got such a bad rep, I'll never really know, because Mel Brooks is hilarious. That he is such a funny guy. He's writing it. I don't know why this movie was met with such bad reviews, but I enjoyed it. And if you haven't seen it, do yourselves a favor, especially if you love spoof movies. This will not disappoint. So number 5 is The Secret Life of Walter Mitty with Ben Stiller. And, the biggest criticism on this movie, according to the general public and the big critics out there, is that this movie forgets what it is halfway through. And I really don't agree with that, because the movie is about a guy, a straightforward average guy who dreams big. He lives in fantasy worlds, and he wants, to get out of this rut of just being a regular normal guy, and he lets his mind wander. And for me, the way that it was captured was actually pretty good. Ben Stiller, for me personally, gave a stellar performance in this movie. He really got that kid-like sense of wonder. It was perfect. And if you're a fan of a dramedy, because this movie is a comedy, but it has certain serious elements in it as well. So if you're a fan of that and of really good acting from Ben Stiller, this is really the movie for you. I really thought he went above and beyond in this movie, and it's a movie that I enjoy. I've watched it more than once, and I think it's pretty well done. And I really don't understand why people don't like this movie. It's a little bit weird for me, to be honest. Alright, so coming in number 4 is the movie Edge of Tomorrow with Tom Cruise and Emily Blunt. Now, this movie actually made and lost quite a bit of money because of, advertising mistakes and all of that. And a lot of people said that, this movie is way too overhyped for the type of movie that it is. I strongly disagree with that, because for me, I felt that the movie, when the trailers started to come out and the posters started to come out, it was pretty obvious that this was going to be a sci-fi movie. This was going to be an alien-esque vibe, and it's going to be one of those out there concepts. And upon watching the movie when it released, I wasn't disappointed with, the information that I got about the movie. I thought it was pretty well done. Emily Blunt and Tom Cruise were both really good in this movie. The visual effects were really good in this movie. I thought that the story was well written. And yeah, I know that, advertising mistakes were made and the movie lost some money and stuff. But I don't think it deserves to be criticized so severely, because for the type of genre movie that it was, I don't think it was that bad. I actually really enjoyed the movie. And, now that there are talks about, a possible sequel, that would be amazing. I mean, I really enjoyed, the whole concept of the movie and how it was brought together. So, for me, this is a good movie. Let me know in the comment section if you guys agree. If you've seen Edge of Tomorrow, is it a yay or nay? Coming in at number 3 is Dread, the Carl Urban one that released in 2012. Now, a lot of people kind of feel that this movie, wasn't that good, and it was, based on the graphic novel and the older one with Sylvester Stallone, which was, a pretty good movie. But Dread, for me, a lot of people say, this movie was just made for the sake of being a remake, and it has very kind of stick-like performance, and the people weren't convincing. I disagree. Carl Urban is, in my opinion, a pretty good actor. He's kind of an underrated actor, which is why I think this is an underrated movie. I went into this movie not expecting the Judge Dredd that we saw with Sylvester Stallone. I expected something new. And for me, Carl Urban's performance was really good. Lena Headey as the bad guy, she was amazing. I mean, I really thought that this was a good movie. The concept was good. The cinematography was actually really, really good for for setting that dark tone and that dark vibe. I really enjoyed it for what it was. And I think a lot of people went into this expecting like a sci-fi masterpiece when this is just like a sci-fi action. You're supposed to sit there and it's a bunch of shootouts and fight scenes and explosions and you name it, and it's pretty good. I mean, it's a good movie for what it is. So why it got such a bad rep, I don't really understand. I thought it was good, but it's one of those. It's one of those underappreciated movies, and I think it's severely underrated for the type of movie that it is. Alright, so coming in at number 2 is another Tom Cruise movie called American Made. Now, American Made is based on a true story, about Barry Seal, who actually started smuggling / transporting drugs for Pablo Escobar. And how this movie was, made was, I mean, we all know that, Tom Cruise is actually, he takes on more serious roles most of the time. And, in this movie, he portrays a guy that, if you read about Barry Seal, was like he portrays him. But a lot of people said that, they think Tom Cruise wasn't the right fit for the role and somebody else could have done it better. And, if they changed the cast up a little bit, the movie would have been better or felt different. I feel like, Tom Cruise, yes, he is actually a more serious actor, but I think he did a really great job as Barry Seal. I could actually connect with the character, which is always a great thing if you're watching a movie. If you can't connect with the character, you're going to sit there like, okay, this is getting tedious. But, he portrayed him very well. And I think for the type of movie that it was, and for the type of reception that it got, it deserves a little better. It's one of those true stories that you'll watch it once and you'll go, okay, this was pretty interesting, and it actually got me to do some research on the real Barry Seal and find out his story, which was really, really interesting to read. And I watched it a second time and I was like, what, this really isn't that bad of a movie. It's really well done. And Tom Cruise is a great actor. I mean, I know a lot of people don't like some of his movies, but I don't think I've ever watched a Tom Cruise movie and I thought, what, this could have been better. I'm a fan. I think he's a good actor, and I think he did a really great job in American Made as well. So if you haven't seen American Made, watch it for yourself, make up your own mind, but it is a very severely underrated movie if you ask me. Alright, so coming in at number 1, and the reason why this is number 1, remember, this is just for me. But the reason why this is number 1, I do not understand why people don't like this movie. It's called Ex Machina. And it is a very fresh take on a sci-fi movie. But it also has elements of, drama in it, which is, I think, why a lot of people disliked it. But there's a reason for this. The whole movie is a narrative of how technology is basically taking over our lives. I mean, we're always busy with technology for the biggest part of our day, and how, if we're not careful, it could end up being the death of us. That's the narrative of this movie. And the whole movie from beginning to end gives you this kind of like a weird vibe, because you basically see this movie through the eyes of the main character. And you have really no information about anything else going on in the movie. And as this movie, progresses and you find out more about what's going on, it gets that much better. I mean, it's a sci-fi, but, there is a lot of drama elements in it because the whole movie is about discovery. And as the movie progressed, I got even more interested and invested in what was happening because it was told so well, and the acting from everybody in this movie is phenomenal. I mean, it surprised me for what it is. And I really just think that, as a sci-fi movie, it's really well. And, from an acting standpoint, I think everybody did well. And the main criticism on this movie is that, halfway through the movie, it forgets what it is. And you end up not knowing what genre of movie you're actually watching. I I don't think so. I mean, for me, it's a sci-fi through and through. I mean, yes, there's some dramatic elements in it, but I think the movie called for it, and I think it did a really good job at the end of the day for what it was. So, I really enjoyed Ex Machina. I thought it was amazing. It's one of those movies that, you watch it again and then you're like, damn, I didn't notice that before. But it's still a great movie. And this one is in the number one slot for me because this was one of those sci-fi movies that I thought I was going to hate, but I ended up loving. And I really don't get the bad rep that people give this movie. It's really, really good. And if you haven't seen it, do yourselves a favor and watch this movie. Let me know in the comments which one of these movies that are, underrated shocked you the most, and which one of these you enjoyed most watching. Also, go follow my social media links if you guys have the time. I'd really appreciate it because I'm posting a lot of stuff on there as well. And thank you so much for the support that you guys have shown me on the social media thus far. If you guys have a movie that I didn't name on this list that you feel is underappreciated, also let me know in the comments, and why you enjoyed it and all that stuff, because I'd like to hear that from you guys. I will see you guys again next week with another awesome video. I hope you have an amazing week ahead of you. And yeah, see you next time. Peace.